we do have some changes on the way, so I wanted to go and give you all an update about what we can expect really for this evening, but even more so looking into the end of this weekend, as if you're like me, you're starting to set up plans for the weekend. Unfortunately, it does look like we are going to be looking at active weather once again. So we'll give it, say, 30 seconds, maybe a minute and a half. I'll be able to make sure everything's working here behind the scenes, but then we'll get started in this update in full. But at least for now, I'll spin this back around, show you the current conditions across the area. We did see an increase in cloud cover for much of the area, much like we're seeing down here into Bozeman. That's with the passage of our cold front, but now that it is through, we're more just waiting on the next round of moisture and even of winds to move in over the next couple of hours. So the evening, at least for the short term, quite nice. That will change as we go, maybe even as early as, say, 9, 10 o'clock this evening. So as you're tuning in, if you have any questions about this upcoming storm system, feel free to ask those in the chat section. And then also, if, let us know where you're tuning in from. Are you ready for more rain and snow showers, or are you already going to be missing out on the very spring-like weather that we've seen the last couple of days? I'll add myself to that category. I'm definitely looking forward to more warmer temperatures, but some mountain snow never is a bad thing, especially as we're getting towards the average median of our snow water equivalent. So one little bit of good news, our snowpack has seen some decent, is in decent conditions right now. We've seen the improvement from some of those heavier snowstorms in recent weeks. But if we can keep that going, that'll be great for our water supply going into the summer. But with more active weather on the way, the good news is that should continue to be the case. So while I am looking forward to more spring-like warm conditions, you can't say no, at least as we head into spring itself, that we get a little bit more mountain precipitation. So let me spin this back around. Everything is working here behind the scenes, and I say let's get started with this update. Again, beautiful out there for Kalispell and Missoula. Same thing for Butte. We've seen a little bit of clearing over the last hour or so. Still a few spotty showers in southwest Montana, but overall I think things will quiet down briefly for the next 3 to 5 hours there before we start to see some changes and move back in. Now, as for those temperatures, right now we are at 58 degrees in Butte. Bozeman, we're around 61 degrees, 68 in Missoula, and 63 in Kalispell. So today's been another very mild afternoon across the area. Not quite as warm as what we saw yesterday, but still well above average for this time of the year. Average is pretty close to the 50, 52 degree mark. So anywhere from about 10 to 15 degrees above average for many areas. But you notice those winds in Missoula, 29 miles per hour, 26 there in Bozeman for those gusts. We've seen those anywhere from about 25 to 35 miles per hour on average with our cold front. Those should start to subside just a little bit over the next few hours. But again, those thunderstorms could be an increase to those winds. Now, the driver of the active weather that's coming not only for tonight and into tomorrow, but all the way through the weekend and early next week is this large low pressure system that's really just starting to creep onshore of the Pacific Northwest. It's going to stay in that position, but as it does so, it's going to pump moisture into our region. But you see the general size of the trough of low pressure. So you have the low pressure center here, but the general trough is quite large back to the west, and that's going to really keep us active all the way into early next week, as once it gets in place, we're not going to see it change too much. But for the rest of this evening and into the early parts of the overnight, we had that general thunderstorm threat for all of our region in this light green. Gusty winds, 40 to perhaps as high as 50 miles per hour will be possible. Some small hail, generally smaller than pocket change, so like dimes and nickels, should say smaller than that, and that would only be in our strongest storms. And then some lightning will be possible. I know we've had a couple of lightning strikes already this afternoon closer to Glacier National Park, but I think with the next wave of moisture, we'll have a better chance of that. And speaking of lightning, I'll stop this right now. We've actually got a lightning strike down into the Mission Valley, pretty close to the Bison Range area here near near Charlotte, and let me see if I can shrink the size of the lightning strikes. That's a little bigger than I expected it to be. So let me change the size of these so they're not quite so in our face for the moment. But yeah, this is probably the strongest cell we've seen all afternoon here, moving closer to the Charlotte area. The Bison Range down here is roughly in there. Dixon, that storm is just north of there. This will be likely tracking off to the north and east. So places like Ronan, Pablo, we could see this next little storm moving in, say the next 15 to 20 minutes. Charlotte, it's already pretty much on top of you. So with the lightning probably being the biggest concern with these, make sure to stay indoors just for a little bit until this storm passes. We've got a few more little cells popping up here to the south and west of Polson, and then up over the Mission Mountains here east of the Polson area. I'm going to get just a general trend of that motion over the last little bit. Yeah, northeast, so this may be more, these showers and thunderstorms may be more of an issue for Pablo, Polson, and then getting into the western shores of Flathead Lake as compared to, say, a St. Ignatius, the Kicking Horse area up to Ronan. But still close enough. So that's, again, the general sense. We're going to see these showers and thunderstorms increasing through the evening. Here comes the next wave of moisture. In general, this is on the lighter side, maybe a little bit of light to moderate rainfall. But again, even though we're not seeing lightning with it, you see some of these heavier cores closer to Pierce. This will be rolling in that general direction of, say, Alberton and Superior later on this evening. And then further back off to the west, we've seen some heavier showers back into southeastern Washington, northeastern Oregon. I was talking about a storm about an hour ago close to the Kennewick and Pendleton area, and I want to see if I can get that to pull up. This particular version of the radar is not showing it. Let me go to the three. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. I was talking about it earlier, and that is, still centered right over Kennewick, Washington right now. But as that tracks north, if it can maintain its intensity, probably looking about 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning with this band, northwest Montana, certainly couldn't rule out those showers and storms working their way in. Same thing with this batch here north of Lewiston. I'm moving into places like the Highway 200 corridor, places like Noxon, Trout Creek, Thompson Falls, where you are about to likely see some light showers in the short term, maybe some stronger storms that move in later tonight. And as I mentioned before, we're not seeing too much in the way of lightning with that one cell near Pierce, but within the last 2 minutes, there are those lightning strikes. So that gives you the general sense of what we're going to be looking at. Any of these stronger cores of storms, we about that pocket change size hail. Not expecting too much in the way of big hail with this storm system, but that potential is there. So zooming out a little bit further, I haven't talked about southwest Montana all too much, but down here closer to West Yellowstone, we're dealing with some light showers. Generally rain in West Yellowstone itself. Snow levels are quite high still, roughly 6,000 to 7,000 feet, if not higher in a few locations. But over the next few days, we will see those snow levels starting to fall. Now, Future Tracker may be a little overdone in the amount of thunderstorm activity up here in northwest Montana. Didn't see these really develop here west of Kalispell, but a little bit further south again, and maybe it has a general sense of the idea with those thunderstorms now developing into the Mission Valley. Overall, we're going to continue to be relatively quiet I'll say this, we're going to see our quiet weather start to diminish with increasing activity overnight. More showers and thunderstorms, again, more the focus in northwest Montana. This is looking at 9 p.m., maybe just a hair overdone, but it has the general area that's going to see the greatest coverage, potentially some snow in the highest elevations of Glacier National Park. And as we get closer to, say, 10 o'clock, midnight, more of those showers, maybe a rumble of thunder moving into southwest Montana and maybe into west central portions of the state as well. But let me go a little bit further. I was talking about those storms back into Washington and Oregon. This will be the next wave that moves in, and this probably has the best chance to bring more widespread activity to the region. This is looking around 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning, right on the Highway 200 and Interstate 90 corridors. And then even down here to Interstate 15 from Butte down towards Dillon, we're going to be dealing with those showers. maybe a rumble of thunder or two. Certainly won't rule that out by any means. That moves into the Bozeman area, say 6 to 8 a.m. tomorrow. Could be a little bit of a wet commute. Not expecting, again, heavy rainfall by any means, but some showers will be there. Maybe that rumble of thunder. And then the activity continues across northwest Montana through the early afternoon. But by the late afternoon, we're looking at more scattered to widespread activity across the area. Snow levels still at this time, probably about 5,000 to 6,000 feet, but they will begin to fall slowly now that our cold front is passing through the area. As we go into Friday evening, though, you see more of that moisture transitioning over to snow right along the divide, the Interstate 15 corridor. Still is rain mostly, but in the mountains on either side, especially towards the divide, we'll see more of that snow starting to take shape. So let me go to our next graphic before I go too far into those, into the weekend forecast. 60% chance of primarily rain to start, but a little bit of rain and snow for our valleys. It can't be ruled out, especially as we head into Saturday. For areas west of the divide, those precipitation chances really drop off into Sunday, but along the divide and into southwest Montana, that'll actually be likely higher into Sunday. We're probably talking about 60 to 70% Sunday into Monday down across southwest Montana, as a Yellowstone low is going to start to develop, and you'll see that here coming up. But the active weather really is just going to be sticking around all the way through the early parts of next week. So getting back into, here's Saturday morning, again starting to see more of those blues and pinks showing up as those snow levels begin to fall. One low pressure system really across north central Montana, or central and north central Montana, brings those snow levels down to valley floors up towards places like Great Falls, maybe even Helena. Not as much activity further to the south, but Saturday afternoon, more instability builds. We see more of those thunderstorms start to develop, or more of those, I say thunderstorms, there could be a little bit of thunder in there, but for the most part, just more convective shower activity. So valley rain, snow, maybe even some graupel, heavier snow up in our mountains. But notice as we go from Saturday evening into Sunday morning, you see the spin that develops down here. This is that Yellowstone low that I was talking about. And this is actually a term that I just recently heard from the National Weather Service, but it's more for these southwest Montana type storm systems. The lows track further to the south. You have this wraparound moisture on the backside, and looking at 7 a.m. on Sunday morning, for the most part, you're not seeing any of those greens and pinks showing up. So potentially at this point, we're talking about all snow Sunday morning. Could see some decent accumulation up in the mountains if this particular forecast model comes to fruition. Passes like Homestake Pass, Bozeman Pass, Cardwell Hill, Norris Hill, we could be looking at some at least lighter accumulations of snow, if not maybe more moderate accumulations. Now, as we go through the day on Sunday, this is where the model actually ends, is right here at noon. We'll continue to see those scattered showers throughout the day, maybe starting to briefly clear up towards Butte and Dillon, right along the Interstate 15 corridor, but I keep an eye on Bozeman, maybe for at least some lighter accumulations, a dusting up to maybe 2 inches right now. But we've got a few days to watch that. Plenty can change with that forecast. But back to the west, Sunday, likely looking at a cloudy day, some spotty showers from Missoula, not looking at much activity up into northwestern Montana. And if you were looking for a big warm-up after this, unfortunately, we aren't going to be seeing that. So really, all the way into the early parts of April, we're looking at temperatures pretty close to average for this time of the year. Good news when it comes to our precipitation, that likely will stay above average, but maybe by the time we get to the end of next week, we start seeing another little bit of a warm-up, maybe those temperatures back into the mid and upper 50s across much of the region. So something we'll have to keep an eye on, but in general, through this period, all the way into the middle and end of next week, scattered showers, valley rain, maybe a wintry mix of rain and snow. Mountain snow is going to continue to be common, so that's just helping to build up our snowpack, which is pretty close to average for this time of the year for most of our basins, but extra snowpack is certainly not a bad thing. So that's pretty much everything that I have for this particular update. Again, this is kind of a last chance if you got any questions. Feel free to ask those, and I'll try and answer them here in this live. In general, here's the rough breakdown. As we go throughout the rest of the evening, we will see an increase in cloud cover once again. Winds will stay a little bit on the breezy side, but when we get some of those thunderstorms like we're already seeing develop towards the Mission Valley, we could be talking about frequent lightning, some small hail, and wind gusts 40 to perhaps as high as 50 miles per hour. Those will increase in coverage overnight tonight, though I think we'll see multiple waves of them. Not everybody's going to see moisture, and not everybody's going to see a thunderstorm. That'll be even lesser of a likelihood, but some scattered showers and a few rumbles of thunder certainly will be there for the overnight and period tonight and into tomorrow morning. Then we'll transition over to more, still looking at widespread activity, but less in the way of thunderstorms outside of southwest Montana tomorrow afternoon, as it looks like right now. That could certainly change if we get a little bit more instability that starts to set up. But overall, we'll transition over to more of that, I'll say, stable rain and snow across the area. Snow levels will be falling from where they are now, about 6,000 to 7,000 feet, down to around 5,000 feet as we get into Saturday morning. And then maybe by Sunday, those, especially in southwest Montana, those drop all the way down to valley floors, say 3,500 feet or so. Something we'll have to keep an eye on. But in general, our relatively nice weather, and I won't even say relatively, it was beautiful the last couple of days with those record highs and lots of sunshine. Those beautiful days are pretty much behind us at this point. This evening, nothing too bad in most areas outside of those thunderstorms in the Mission Valley. So enjoy it while you can, because we're going to see those changes starting, really from this point on. We'll continue to see those changes. But I am going to go back to radar just really quick because there is a little bit more development ongoing that I just want to finish this off with before I completely wrap this up and go and grab some dinner. But this is going to be looking towards, again, first batch of showers and thunderstorms. We've got that lightning strike right over Polson, so likely looking at some strong winds. And you know what? I actually can go to our camera here. So this is a little bit of an audible. That's the Dillon camera. Let me get us to Polson, our Polson camera. So this is going to take a minute. So right at the moment, we're not seeing that storm. Well, actually, yes, you can. Every once in a while, you could see the raindrops coming through. So I'm just going to leave it on this camera for just a second to see how the conditions change over the next, 2-3 minutes as this next storm rolls. I wish I could have a little split screen, so essentially have the camera of Polson here and the radar over on the other side to kind of have like a double box thing going on. Unfortunately, I don't have that. We'll come back to this camera here momentarily. Let me just pull this up here so it's right close by. So jumping back into the radar itself, I know these lightning strikes are going to be way too big again, taking up the whole screen when I get zoomed in here. So let's change this once again. Shrink those down to about 7. And like I was saying, that line of storms moving more of a north-northeasterly direction, really from about the Charlotte to Ronan line and north is where we are seeing these. That lightning strike likely right over the lake. Our camera may have actually caught that if it was a cloud-to-ground lightning strike, as you see another one pop up right there. So this is moving right, the heaviest of this is right over US 93 here from Polson north and west, really as you're crossing the bridge that goes over the bay as it crosses or transitions back over to the river. But this is going to be moving over the southern sides of Flathead Lake for the next little bit. Really not a good time to be on the lake right now as the storm is rolling in. It's not particularly strong, but it could produce some stronger winds, say 30 to 40 miles per hour, maybe even a gust closer to 50 as it rolls to the north. Pablo, Ronan, you're pretty much in the same boat with another, with that next round of showers. Polson, you'll see multiple rounds of this. And then we see more lightning developing in this storm closer to Pierce. So this right now honestly looks like our strongest storm, even though it is just across the state line over into Idaho. Places like Superior, Alberton, Tarkio, we're going to see this moving in probably in about the next hour and a half or so. Of course, we'll have to see if it maintains that intensity. And as this little line stretches back to the south, maybe places from Alberton to Missoula and the northern Bitterroot will have to keep a close eye on these. for some increased winds, lightning, and the such. And then we have another storm that's starting to blow up here, just a small one here south of Dvorak and St. Regis, and this will be moving likely right between them on Interstate 90. So let's go back out to that camera at Flathead Lake. And, you know, again, not a whole lot difference that we're seeing right at the moment, but overall, this will probably be a rainy sight here in the next few minutes, starting to get a little bit of that sunset glow, probably from some of those like rain shafts that we're seeing here. So just kind of an interesting look with this storm rolling in. But let's see. Just going to go back to radar, see if there's anything else that's, I say changed, but just looking a little bit different. Getting some more lightning strikes now off of the second cell that's here to the east of Pierce. So now both of these are on their way up. They're ramping up, both intensifying. So, like I said, that'll be the next batch to watch. But currently, what we're dealing with are these right over Polson, the south side of Flathead Lake, down into the Mission Valley, Pablo, Ronan. And these storms are actually going to be heading off to the north and east, so looking towards Yellow Bay, Woods Bay. Yellow Bay is roughly in here, Woods Bay is here. Maybe even as far north as Big Fork, but maybe more closer to Lake, say, Ferndale, cross over to Swan Lake here on the north side of Montana Highway 83 for this next batch of thunderstorms that is getting ready to move across the lake right now. So our camera, and again, the lightning strike's a little too big, is looking more off this direction. So we're missing the core of this storm just by a little bit, but it's centered roughly in there, looking back off to the north and east, back in the direction of Yellow Bay, Finley Point. But you're starting to see those rain shafts. It's a little bright on the camera, but up here on the left, and I also have another way of actually can move this camera, so let's see about doing just that. It's just going to take me a minute to adjust it. I'll just turn this to the left a little bit, might see a pretty... Yeah, there we go. So there's the look of that thunderstorm rolling in. Spin it. Oh, that was a little too far. Sorry about that, folks. There we go. But there's that live look from our Quatucknuck weather camera at Flathead Lake. This is in Polson, looking off to the northeast right now as that storm is rolling over the lake. Not seeing a whole lot of rain here at the camera, but we did see that, say about 3 to 5 minutes ago. But overall, just kind of a nice view. Right now, not a great time to be on the lake. Probably seeing, again, we're seeing some lightning strikes out there, some lighter to maybe moderate rainfall, and then some gusty winds. As you can see, maybe see it a little bit, the camera's shaking just a little bit left and right. So this storm will continue to move its way off to the northeast. Next in line for this will be the Yellow Bay and Woods Bay areas, maybe up towards Swan Lake, and then further back off to the north towards Big Fork, though I think that's a lesser likelihood from there. But I think with that, I am going to start wrapping this up. Like I was saying, more thunderstorms are on their way. They are developing back into Idaho, so the US 90 or Interstate 90 corridor really right now, as it looks like, from Missoula back over towards Superior, St. Regis, we'll see those thunderstorms if they can maintain their intensity, at least the second wave of thunderstorms, and then also the Highway 200 corridor, places like Thompson Falls, maybe even Plains, Trout Creek, Noxon. We'll see those over the next, say, 1 to maybe 2 hours on the long side, and then we'll see another round of those developing overnight tonight that are already developed back into Washington and Oregon. Those will be sliding through later on this evening, but certainly stay weather aware this evening. Not expecting severe weather, but some stronger storms will be possible. Now's a great time. You can download the NBC Montana weather app. It has interactive radar, but you can also see interactive radar from our website, our homepage, nbcmontana.com/weather, and you can get the current conditions for your area as well as that latest forecast. And then if you have any photos or videos of this evening and tonight's storms, and if you're able to get those safely, certainly feel free to share those photos or videos with us at nbcmontana.com/chime in, and then tune in for our live broadcast tonight at 10 o'clock. We'll have the latest news and weather updates, as well as what you can expect for that forecast heading into the weekend. And then tomorrow morning, NBC Montana Today with Jason Hurst and forecaster Brianna Henderson, who will be in for Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster. So let me check one more thing, make sure I didn't miss any comments or questions. Again, thank you all for tuning in this evening. Thanks for taking a little bit of your evening to spend it with me as I go through, this weather update. But overall, have a great evening. Have a safe evening. And I will see you all on the next one, likely about the same time tomorrow evening. So I'll see you all on the next one with NBC Montana. I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coons.